Imagine realizing that no matter how clearly you speak, no matter how much you explain, most people will never truly understand you. Not because you're bad at explaining, not because you're wrong, but because they simply can't see what you see. And that realization is dangerous because it forces you to choose. Do you keep shrinking yourself so others feel comfortable? Or do you accept that thinking differently comes with a cost? Friedrich Nietzsche believed that the individual who dares to think beyond the herd will inevitably stand alone, not because they want to, but because they must. And once you understand this, you stop fighting reality. Most people don't question the world. They inherit it. They adopt beliefs from their parents, their environment, their culture. And they rarely stop to ask, is this actually true? Not because they're incapable of thinking deeply, but because it's uncomfortable. To think deeply is to face uncertainty, to challenge your own beliefs, to admit you might be wrong. And most people would rather feel certain than be right. So they stay within the familiar. They repeat ideas. They follow patterns. They live inside mental frameworks they've never examined. But if you're someone who questions everything, who notices contradictions, who thinks beyond what's obvious, then you've already stepped outside that framework. And that's where the divide begins. The problem is, once you see more, you can't unsee it. You start noticing things others ignore. You hear what people say and what they avoid saying. You see patterns in behavior, in systems, in life itself. And naturally, you want to share it. You try to explain your perspective. You try to help others see what you see. But instead of understanding, you get blank stares, resistance, dismissal. You're overthinking. It's not that deep. Why do you make everything complicated? And slowly, something dangerous happens. You start doubting yourself. Nietzsche warned about this. He believed that society subtly pressures individuals to conform, not through force, but through discomfort. If you think differently, you'll feel it. In conversations, in relationships, in silence. You'll feel the tension of being out of place. And over time, many people respond the same way. They shrink, they simplify their thoughts, they hide their depth. They start speaking in ways that are easier to accept but less true, just to belong. But here's the truth most people never say. Every time you shrink yourself to be understood, you lose a part of what makes you powerful. Because understanding is not always about clarity. Sometimes it's about capacity. You can explain something perfectly and still not be understood. Why? Because the other person hasn't developed the perspective required to grasp it. And that's not an insult, it's reality. Just like you wouldn't expect someone to understand complex philosophy without ever questioning their own beliefs. You can't expect everyone to meet you at your level of thinking. This is where most people waste their energy. They keep explaining, rephrasing, dumbing things down, hoping that if they just say it the right way, they'll finally be understood. But what they don't realize is this: you cannot translate depth into simplicity without losing meaning. And more importantly, you cannot force awareness. Nietzsche introduced the idea of the higher individual, someone who creates their own values instead of inheriting them. But he also made something very clear. This path is not comfortable. It comes with isolation, misunderstanding, and often rejection. Because when you step outside the herd, you stop speaking the same language. So what do? Do you isolate yourself completely? No, that's not strength, that's avoidance. The real answer is something much harder. You stop needing to be understood by everyone. You accept that most people will only meet you at the level they're at. And you stop expecting more from them. Not with arrogance, but with clarity. Think about it like this. You don't get frustrated when a child can't understand advanced ideas. You understand that they're not there yet. So why do we expect everyone, regardless of their mindset, experience, or awareness, to understand complex perspectives? The frustration comes from unrealistic expectations. And once you remove those expectations, you remove the frustration. This doesn't mean you become cold or disconnected. It means you become selective. Selective with your energy. Selective with your words. Selective with who you open up to. Because not every conversation deserves your depth. And not every person is capable of receiving it. And here's where it becomes empowering. When you stop trying to be understood by everyone, you start becoming clearer within yourself. You think sharper. You speak with more intention. You stop over-explaining. And something interesting happens. People start paying more attention. Because instead of chasing validation, you project certainty. But the most important shift is internal. You stop asking, why don't they understand me? And you start asking, why do I need them to? That question changes everything. Because the need to be understood is often tied to the need for approval. And once you detach from that, you become independent in a way most people never reach. Nietzsche believed that true growth comes from overcoming, not just external obstacles, but internal dependence. The dependence on approval, the dependence on agreement, the dependence on being understood. And when you overcome that, you become dangerous. Not to others, but to limitations. Because now, you're free. Free to think without restriction. Free to act without constant validation. Free to live according to your own understanding of the world. And yes, that path can feel lonely at times. But it's also the path where real strength is built. So the next time you feel misunderstood, don't rush to explain yourself. Pause, observe, and remind yourself, not everyone is meant to understand you. And that's not a weakness. That's a sign that you've stepped beyond the ordinary. Keep thinking deeply. Keep questioning. Keep refining your perspective. Because the goal was never to be understood by everyone. The goal is to become so grounded in your thinking that whether people understand you or not doesn't change who you are. And in the end, that's what sets you apart. Not just that you think differently, but that you have the strength to stand by it, even when you stand alone.